Hello, this is Alex Birkett, and you are listening to the Long Game Podcast. In this episode, I'm talking with Peep Laja. Peep Laja is the founder of CXL Institute, formerly known as Conversion XL, an education platform for marketers, analysts, UX professionals, etc. He also founded Winter, a platform to test your copywriting and website or product messaging, and also Spiro, a conversion rate optimization agency. Depending on when you met him, you might know Peep as the CRO guy, or the CRO guy who wears the paperboy hat on stage, or the powerhouse blogger and conference speaker, or the guy on Twitter who consistently posts blunt and brilliant insights. I, however, know Peep as my former boss at CXL, as well as a mentor and a friend. I've not only learned a ton about A/B testing, conversion rate optimization, and analytics from Peep, but I've learned invaluable lessons on how to run a business, how to ship quickly, how to attract talent, how to demand excellence of myself and others, and how to prioritize what's important in life. This conversation spans many of those topics, including tactical tips on how Peep manages his social media, how he builds an audience, how he looks at building an audience. We also cover his drive and motivation for continually launching and running new businesses. So we did this podcast in person, which was an awesome mix-up during an all Zoom, all the time pandemic. But the audio is going to be slightly less consistent, a little more variable, since we don't have our normal podcast mic set up. Despite this, you're going to enjoy this one. Here's my podcast with Peep Laja. Okay, so what have you been working on?
2 jobs. I'm the CEO and founder of Winter, which is an early stage startup. So I'm very technical, very hands-on. I'm doing demos, I'm doing support, I'm running live chat, I'm running the newsletter, I'm doing the tweets, basically doing everything myself. I have a team as well, but I'm like doing a lot hands-on. And then I also run CXL, the e-learning company that you might have heard of, where I do very little hands-on stuff, mostly strategic stuff, setting the vision, basically for the business, setting the goals, the direction, and hiring key players. Yeah.
Are you doing any managing?
Well, I manage, there are a couple of people that report direct to me, the VP product and head of operations.
Mm-hmm.
And then
and that's on the Winter side, or is that on the
That's
CXL
on the CXL side. On the Winter side, I manage a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just now like basically figuring out middle management part. So I have a product manager who also manages people, and I manage the product manager. And then, but I am involved in a lot of things. Like in Winter, I'm very hands-on. I don't take part of like the developer stand-ups. That's product. Because I'm trying to also save my mind space. Because like you can only worry about so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's agency Spiro, where I'm the board member, biggest shareholder, but I'm very far removed. Even in strategic decisions, I'm like on FYI basis. I'm gathering information on what's happening with the business, how the business is doing. I know about the key problems, but I don't get involved. Basically, I just talk to the head of the agency and discuss some matters, but more as a advisor.
Gotcha. So you've got the advising, you've got managing, you've got all of the early stage startup stuff with Winter.
Yeah.
And you're also a prolific marketer, tweeting, I don't know how many times per day, LinkedIn, like you're all over LinkedIn.
Well, that's then, it's the rising water, lifts all the boats and all that stuff. So this is my marketing. I get very little marketing budget for Winter. And so my marketing budget is also my time doing social media, where I'm finding ways how to talk about the business by sharing hopefully useful stuff.
Are you deliberate and strategic about your Twitter and LinkedIn, or are you kind of like ad hoc, like whatever comes to mind, you just
I'm pretty strategic. Sometimes it's like I have a good idea and then I just write about it, but mainly I'm like collecting ideas of I DM myself on Slack. So that's where I gather my ad hoc ideas. I listen to a podcast, idea, and then I send myself a direct message. And then I take that into a tweet storm. On LinkedIn, it's once a day, because on LinkedIn, I don't know, but it seems to me that as soon as you post something, the previous post that you made, that its reach is stopped. It stops the reach and the new one starts over. On Twitter, each tweet has its own capabilities of reach, and so you can tweet as much as you want. They all compete independently. Whereas if I do one LinkedIn post a day, I get 20,000 views. If I do 3 a day, they each get 3,000 or 4,000. So I try to do only one a day on LinkedIn.
I noticed there's a lag on LinkedIn. When I post on there, I get way more engagement on LinkedIn, so I definitely need to spend more time there. But I'll notice I'll publish and nothing happens for a while. And then as they trickle in, it suddenly kind of explodes in a storm of activity. Whereas Twitter, it's the total opposite. It's instantly, if nothing happens, nothing's going to happen.
Totally, yeah. Well, LinkedIn, for sure, also the recency and the volume of comments, and likes greatly determines how much amplification you're going to get. So in my experience is, if you respond to every comment, LinkedIn counts it as engagement and rewards you for it. So if you have 10 comments and you reply to everybody, it's 20 comments. LinkedIn considers it as 20 comments and will amplify your post. And so people who have those pods, the upvoting rings and all that stuff, those are ruling LinkedIn for sure. Because you see the same guys sharing mediocre thoughts with 100 comments.
The same thing as the growth hackers, the upvote ring days,
exactly,
inbound.org and all that stuff.
I bet your ass they are part of upvote rings or the colleagues, or it's not. Some people get a lot of likes for anything they say, even if the content is okay, because they have fans, adoring fans who basically eat up everything they say, or things that have been said to death actually, but their first time hearing it from this new guru.
Are these big name gurus, or is this just your average Joe? I'm trying to imagine, because I know if I saw something that Seth Godin said, that's going to reach a ton of people, and just by sheer numbers, that's going to be repeated, shared a lot. But
it's also like Gary Vee says, work hard, stay committed, 1,000 shares. If I said it, it would be like crickets. Because so Gary Vee can say a lot of things, and you don't need to be Gary Vee level, because I think Gary Vee and Seth Godin are the two marketing celebrities. We don't have any anymore. Those are the two guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Or Neil Patel, maybe.
Neil Patel, for sure. Well, they come in crops, for sure. But you have influence as well. You're clearly influential on LinkedIn and Twitter.
If Gary Vee is A level and DG is B level, then I'm C level.
What do you consider the tiers? What are the numbers in terms of
I think A level is only Seth Godin and Gary Vee. There's nobody else. Those are the two celebrities that people even outside of marketing would have heard of.
Do you want to be a B level or A level, or is that something you aspire to?
Well, sure. There are obvious benefits to having more reach, because just like in business, when market awareness that people know that you exist is huge. And you can ship mediocre stuff as long as you have distribution, people know about you. It's more important than having a good product. Same as in social media, you can get away with shitty content if you have more followers. So why would I not want that? Am I working really hard to become that? No, because you can waste your life on Twitter and trying to be capture the tweets and be a creator. I would love to be a creator, but also real businesses to run.
So you look at it as a means to an end, not necessarily just fame for the sake of fame, like some might.
Yeah, I think being a creator today is fun. I would love to be one.
How do you define a creator, first off?
So you're a one-man or woman company and producing content.
A podcaster.
Substack, and probably
the whole kind of ecosystem.
Probably you do all of the above. You're on TikTok and Twitter and LinkedIn, and then you have newsletters and you do your own webinars and coaching and our friend Louis Grenier. Everybody hates marketers. He's a independent creator, and I think it's a nice gig to have, especially if you're big enough where you can actually make money, and you even you stop working, things are continuing to work, which is the biggest downside of being a solo person. Take a vacation and income drops. So when I was a solo creator, I made more money individually than I'm making now.
This is the early pre-CXL days, or
This is pre-CXL and this is early CXL days.
you were still a consultant at that point?
So, because early CXL days, like I also had a side hustle of doing like the CRO coaching programs twice a year, like very low minimal effort, but like additional 500K a year,
Mm-hmm.
So I stopped doing that because I don't have the time for it, and myself personally, I have a bigger, longer, let's say goal
Mm-hmm.
that I'm working towards. So like I'm ready to. I mean, it's not like I'm struggling, but I'm ready to take in less now for the bigger payoff 10 years from now.
Why?
Well, I mean, immediately I have everything already. I mean, I have a house, a car. I have like all the things that I want to acquire. I have them.
Mm-hmm.
So everything else from what I have now would be just luxury on top. Sure, yes, I could have a bigger villa in Malibu. I wouldn't mind.
Right.
But
It's
I
marginal at this point.
I don't need it. I mean, I lead a comfortable life. But like, and so now, if you have everything, if assuming that Maslow hierarchy of needs is a valid concept, and these days they're talking about questioning that. So assuming it's true, I operate from the tip of the pyramid, which is the self-actualization layer.
Mm-hmm.
So everything I do for fun, for personal learning, and also I like to think of it like we play this one. We have this one life in this universe, and we're gonna die. And so maybe I want to try winning at capitalism as a goal,
Mm. And that's like a game? Like
It's
you look
like-
at it kind of like a fun game you can play. And
Yeah,
and
exactly.
lose
We're
and
all players
get
in this
better
game.
and level up and all
Yeah,
of the
so
above.
there are multiple competing Olympic games happening, like, and you can choose to be part of it. Some are like weightlifting Olympics. Like, I'm not competing there. I'm not trying to become the biggest weightlifter. Well, maybe in my immediate circle.
You were just wearing a weighted vest. So.
Yeah.
You're
but
in that
like-
game at least.
But like in business, I'm actually like trying to compete here,
Mhm.
and like, and you know this too. Like you've met successful business people who built successful businesses, and you hang out with them, and you might be thinking, hey, this guy is not any smarter than I am.
It's the most inspiring thing you can possibly encounter.
Exactly, because it's not like you're envious like this motherfucker, like.
No, it's like, I know that guy. Like, I can do that too. And that's
Exactly, they're not
everything you
superhumans.
need.
You can also like, yes, there's some luck involved and timing and all those things play a role, but still, if you have the right idea and like you push and work hard and do it smartly, you can also get it.
Mhm.
And so, like in retrospect, I have made some mistakes in my entrepreneurial career because, like, I started with an agency, which, from a capitalistic perspective, is not very smart because it's scale.
It's a terrible idea, agencies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's a nice way to immediately put money in the bank, like to have an immediately comfortable life because you don't need to build a product and all that stuff.
Mhm.
Like you don't need any, you just need a computer and you need to know some stuff.
Well, I would say in many ways you can use that capital to leverage. Like you can put that capital into other ventures and not ask permission, from investors or whatever else. You've built that, and then you can put that money into the scalable stuff, right?
Theoretically, that's true, and that's what Basecamp did, and that's what I'm doing. Because CXL Institute, or now CXL, was built from the agency profits or money.
Mm-hmm. And then you sort of productize what CXL was doing in terms of like CRO, and you educate people on that and expand beyond that.
Yeah, and like Winter, which is like a SaaS business, is all paid by CXL. Initial investment, now we're making money too, but like the initial product building, which took more than a year behind the scenes before we launched, like you need to allocate dev capital, hire developers, all that stuff. The agency paid for it. Although I know on many agency owners who say, yeah, one day we'll get into SaaS, but they never actually get there.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you run an agency, it's very easy to be always putting out fires. You're always hiring dealing with client stuff. They always have demands and you always have bills to pay. And it's very costly to run an agency because it's people heavy. Like you can only grow by hiring more people. And that adds up to your payroll. And so if you think about like if you have, let's say a modest sized company of 20 full-time employees, which they're making like above average salary in America. That's up to quite a bit of monthly burn right there.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the other costs that you might have, marketing and tools and So it's hard to it's easy to get stuck in the agency machine and never get around to actually building SaaS. So I think how we were successful was that there was a dedicated person, like when and you were there when I started CXL Institute.
Mm-hmm.
It was like I pulled myself out of the agency and like I don't do any agency work. There was like a transitionary period, 6 months or something, but basically it's like, I'm now doing full time this new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think and. You can't do like double here 10 hours and double there 10 hours. That doesn't work, I think.
So was the key having somebody like a general manager that you could trust to manage the agency while you could essentially look away for at least a little bit?
Exactly. So I had co-founders, so that's huge in this situation, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how do you know when that point is when you need to like lift your head up and go look for different berry bushes to pick from?
Well, for me, it was like I got tired of consulting, so I was proactively looking for like I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to explain what p-value is for the millionth time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you're tired of this.
Yeah.
And then we did this survey for the CXL email list, like what else can we sell you if we were smart enough to sell it to you? And they said courses and ebooks, and it was like simple transition, rather like felt connected. And I said, I'm going to do this now. And then the winter idea was just the impetus came from I just landed on an idea, an unmet need, and like the classic story of I was solving my own problem. Mm-hmm. At CXL, we have 60 plus courses. Each course has their own sales page, plus we have webinar landing pages, PPC landing pages, and all copy heavy. In order to increase the conversion rate, need to improve the copy. So I was looking for a tool that tells me what's wrong with the copy and couldn't find one. And in my research for such tool, I only found other people with the same problem. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God, an unsolved SaaS problem? Ooh, I'm in a position to solve this. And that was also then immediately I grabbed that this moment is a moment, fleeting moment in time when it hasn't been solved yet. I need to jump on it now. And first thing I did, dedicated people. So there was a developer who was tired of building A/B tests. And then we had creative designer guy. I was like, okay, he'd be a great product manager. So you guys now are this team. I'm going to build a SaaS product.
Mm-hmm. At that point, did you also stop some of your duties or all of your duties at the Institute, or did you feel comfortable operating in both worlds because they were more scalable than an agency? Or less hands-on,
in the beginning, I was quite distant. So we had 2 full-time people on it, and I spent maybe, under 5 hours a week on it.
Mm. So it was still
maybe
experimental. It was still...
Yeah, like I was heavily involved in user research. Like we built clickable prototypes that didn't do anything. So I scheduled calls and talked to some of the people that you introduced me to, and I think I showed it to you as well.
The
first version of copy testing,
Mm-hmm.
and we did like I ran I think like 20 to 30 interviews myself, and like had some learnings, but like the building and like the designing of the screens, I was not involved in that nitty gritty. And I became 50-50 involved when the product was launch ready. So, and you can build a product forever, and as the Murphy's Law says, that any project fills the time given to it. And so what we did was like, I hired a guy to help us with product hunt launch. Mm-hmm. We picked a date. So I think there's a massive thing where you set a date with a third party. You're committed. You can't pull out. But this guy is, counting on us. I've already paid him.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had product hunt launch. My developers were like, we're not ready. There's bugs, and it's not as good. And I felt shitty too. Like, showing it to the world what we've been building, and it's not great yet. But I'm so glad we did launch it. And then for CXL, I hired head of operations to take a lot of the management tasks away from me at CXL, so I could do part-time, 50% of my time winter.
Mm-hmm. I love the urgency thing, putting a deadline on something. It reminds me of, is it Frank Slootman, the Snowflake CEO, put out this memo in like 2009 or something, and it got popular after they became public. But he said the 3 ways to basically increase the value of your company and your organization. It's like narrow the scope, so like focus on fewer things and like really, really crush it at those. Increase the speed and up the quality bar. And I feel like that increasing the speed is something that not a lot of people think about. It's like we can do this better, we can do fewer things, but not a lot of people are like, let's just let's go, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in momentum. Also, like, let's say you're discussing a content partnership. Like, just today I had a chat with Katie from UserLeap. It's like, okay, we're going to do something together, and we hashed out some ideas what we're going to do together. And it's like, when are we going to do it? Well, just let's do it right away.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, if it's like, yeah, one day, and then, it will get buried and you never get to it. So if there's some momentum and internal momentum, mostly, like, you're getting excited about an idea, just do it.
It's a motivation thing, especially at a small company when you don't have a ton of people. It really does depend on like how much fun you're having and how motivated you are to get those things done. There's not a lot of slack in the organization, whereas I think large companies have trouble with this. I'll say that's probably the biggest difference between working at a large company and startups that I've found, and something that I'm really trying to kind of imbue in the agency. Is the sense of urgency, motivation, and speed.
For sure. Like the amount of change like Winter has gone through since the day we launched as copy testing. It was B2C audiences only, and now it's B2B. It's different brand, different positioning. We don't even, say copy testing. It's all about messaging and so on. And this has happened, and the company's been out like 8 months, like a lot of changes meanwhile. And like our realization of what business we're in has changed. And so the other day I was doing a demo with the VP marketing, I think, of User Zoom, which is like a big SaaS company. And she was like, you did this and all this stuff and shipped this product in this amount of time. It's like incredible. Because like bigger companies are slow. And I remember the story where at the agency, we hired this guy from NBC Universal to do CRO for CXL for the agency. And after his first week, he said, I have not worked this hard for like 4 years at NBC,
I remember you mentioned that. I also remember you would make decisions very quickly with CXL Institute because we needed to kind of pivot quickly. Right?
Oh, yes.
Like we were learning fast, and it'd be like, all right, fuck, we got to change the landing page copy today. You would just do it.
Totally.
It was kind of a breakneck speed. I also remember, I won't name names, but we talked about like our content pace and how it was just me and Chanel.
Yes.
And we were publishing like 5 times a week in these like really long form articles. And we would look at other kind of SaaS companies in the CRO space, and they'd have teams of 10 people or more, and they'd be publishing 4 times a month. And we're like, how is that?
What the hell are they doing
all day?
Yeah, exactly. What are they doing all day? Yeah, totally. And that period when we had you and Chanel both writing articles, it's like the best traffic increase we've had in the CXL blog traffic history. So I'm a believer that the volume of content you put out matters greatly. Not just that there's something else that can rank for the SEO, which is also great, but it's like Google values the volume you put out. And now I've been seeing this content from LinkedIn. Have you seen this platform called I think it's contentdistribution.com or something?
I haven't heard of this. No.
So there's this guy, the guy who posts LinkedIn content, the type of guy,
Right.
And so he's showing a lot of like these case studies where just by a sheer volume of publishing a fuck ton of content increases your rankings, and the content is not necessarily that great. So
something I want to get into is like I want to publish more, and I think at CXL I was strongly encouraged to publish more by you. So that helped my pace, right? Like I knew that I had to publish twice a week, and that made me prolific. But now I don't really have any obligation to publish content. It obviously helps with the agency, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a tweet or LinkedIn. So I want to get into how do you publish that much? Is that something that comes naturally to you, that kind of breakneck speed? Are you like, do you consider yourself a planner, or do you just do shit? Like,
well, both. I mean, you need actually. I mean, I write very infrequently blog posts because it's very time consuming, as you know. Because it's like 80% research, and then the writing is only like tip of the iceberg there. If you want to publish anything good. So I think 2021 I haven't written anything, but like 2020 I think I published 2 articles. I wrote a piece on differentiation, which took me like 6 months of preparation and reading, like 15 books on the topic and thinking about it a lot. And then that was like my output of my research. And 2 was like I wrote a post on like my advice to my 30-year-old self, which was easier to write because it's just I'm reflecting, like no
totally.
Research. But like on social, which is just much less characters needed. You need to publish every day because in marketing, if you know Byron Sharp, How Brands Grow, the book. So basically, Byron Sharp, for those who don't know, is like this academic who does a lot of research and thinking around the science of marketing. And basically, as a marketer, you need to optimize for 2 things: physical availability, how easy it is to buy your product, and in the digital world, for instance, how well you rank on Google is physical availability. And then mental availability. And mental availability is, when I think of content marketing, I think of Alex Birkett. Like you're the first one I think of if you have mental availability in my mind.
Right, and that requires a sense of frequency.
And exactly. So if every single day I see you on my LinkedIn and Twitter and wherever I hang out, TikTok maybe, you maybe do dance videos and say content marketing.
Right.
So that builds mental availability. Or if I see April Dunford in every imaginable channel, positioning.
True.
She's the first one in my mental availability roster. Like I can't even think who's number 2 there. Like Brendan Dell maybe in my mind, but.
This is what we came to this conclusion, the surround sound strategy, right? I think I've explained that to you before.
Yeah.
HubSpot. It's like where buyers are going to be influenced to, and that's often on social media in these cases, right?
Yeah.
So if you see people talking about positioning all the time, April Dunford, etc. But with software, people are searching for these things like best live chat, and we realized it's not enough to just rank one page for that. What you really want is to be on all of those listicles. So it's kind of like at a cocktail party. You ask a group of friends, what have you been reading? And everybody says the same exact book.
Yes.
You're going to check that book out. And the same thing on the SERPs. If you're repetitively like on each listicle, it's like,
totally.
I got to check out HubSpot.
For sure. Like at CXL, like any CRO article, query you have on Google, like CXL ranks for fucking everything.
So you just start to associate in your mind
exactly
CRO with
it's
CXL.
Like, I'll better skip the middleman and just go search on CXL,
So with the publication stuff, one thing that came to my mind is that, yes, it's easier theoretically to write tweets because they're shorter, but there's something that protects the ego of the long form piece because you can spend months and months on it perfecting every little piece and getting like feedback. So I think for many creators, many creatives, there's a sense of perfectionism that kind of shields them from producing as much as they could like tweets and LinkedIn posts. So do you have like a brief moment before that where you're like, should I tweet this? Or like, I don't know, does that even enter your mind or do you just fire it off like with full confidence?
Usually full confidence. I mean, I have some operating principle for social. Hey, because like if something does well, and I am my own benchmark, I know what well for me means. If it gets 5 likes on Twitter, it's a fail, But if it gets more than 100, that's a signal that this is topic. Either I had like really clever wording for something, or the topic at hand is just hitting home. It's resonating with some sort of on whatever level, it's a pain people have, or that means to me that I should do more of this, talk more about this topic, and if I were a blogger, I should write articles about this. And same for LinkedIn, Twitter and LinkedIn content. I do this identical stuff. I mean, I reword here and there because in Twitter it's tweet storms, and on LinkedIn it's just 1,300 characters. But mainly I do the same content. What I do also on social is that on blogs I'm more soft. So it's like sometimes some people, when they feel angry, they do this. On Twitter I say people do this.
Right.
I caught that because you need to be a little bit edgy. You're controversial, and people like strong opinions, and they ignore soft opinions. If you have a weak opinion, it's like maybe sometimes some people, nobody gives a shit. If you say people are like this, you either are like yes or you're like fuck no. Either way, I get engagement.
Oh man, it's funny because that's the exact thing that prevents me from doing just that. It's like in a blog post, I can hedge and say like, well, sometimes this is the case, but you have to test it for yourself, right?
Totally.
And tweets, I don't want to draw the ire of the crowd, right? You don't want to get piled on. So do you just like?
I mean, people do, say that, well, yes, but, there's this case. And then I agree. Yeah, of course, there's an edge case. There's many edge cases.
But you look at the controversy as a positive. It's not like something to be feared.
Exactly. I mean, because they're not really, I'm not talking about like politics where they want to kill me for something, right?
That's
it's
fair,
like,
yeah.
I'm saying like, don't do push marketing to poll. And then nobody's going to like send me death threats over it. They might disagree with me and then I can clarify my position or say, yes, I agree with you. This is an edge case and it doesn't apply. So mainly I'm generalizing on purpose. And also then I have to be fine with taking criticism and being called out that doesn't apply. Just today I did a post on line extensions, brand line extensions. So because we did CXL Institute, CXL Agency, and that was a bad idea. And then we had to rebrand the agency as Spiro.
Mm-hmm.
And my post is, don't do line extensions, they suck. Obviously, there are successful line extension case studies out there, and people are like, what about that? And I knew it's coming, and it's fine.
Mm-hmm. I got you. So is it fair to say that you look at, I guess social is, number one, it's like a branding, awareness, marketing play, but is it fair to say you look at it as like a learning kind of feedback generating mechanism?
For sure.
Too?
I mean, I think it's great research for blog post writing. I mean, they'll do the research for you. I need counter examples to this argument. I'll just make the argument. People disagree with me. Great. Thanks for the examples, man.
Mm-hmm.
Saved me a ton of time here. Another thing is people don't read comments on social media. They just read the post. But when I say they don't read, I'm again generalizing, right? Some people do. But often what happens is that people ask the same question on LinkedIn post comments 7 times in a row. Mm-hmm. Like they didn't. I know I already replied person number 1 explaining at length, and they don't read the comments. So most people are just reading what I said, and if anybody finds a fault with my argument, they don't read that part.
That makes sense. So I wanted to go down the rabbit hole of like social media, but a while back you said something about the agency and some potential, I don't know if it was regret, but you mentioned that like you have bigger goals now, and like there was something around like starting with the agency first that didn't seem completely, like, do you regret that? Do you regret how much time you spent on just the agency?
Yeah.
What do you feel?
Well, in a sense, I mean, it's hard to know how it would have played out because it's fine the way it is. But I do feel that I would have gotten further along had I started with like a scalable business right away. Mm-hmm. Like instead of an agency business, if I would have started with a SaaS business right away, or the SaaS business that failed for me, trained them. It's what now today is teachable.
I was gonna say now it's like
like I was a little ahead of
early.
I was early. I should have not given up. I was like my costs were not high. I mean, it's hard to know when you should give up because it was like a zombie company. It wasn't dead, but it wasn't quite alive either.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice would be like go with a company that can go mainstream first. Like classically they say go for a super niche, but I don't know, man. I mean, it depends what your goal is. Obviously, it's easier. So I think building a business is hard no matter what. And whether you're building a small business or a big business, they're probably equally hard to an extent.
I've heard that before, right? Like whether you want to start a gas station or a restaurant, you're probably working just as hard as, I don't want to say Elon Musk or something. You know what I mean? Like he's just reaching for a way bigger target. So if he succeeds, like the rewards are going to be that much greater. So it's like you're going to work hard no matter what.
Totally. So the upside is just bigger. And also then you're able to exclude external capital and not risk with your money only if your idea has, like with extra capital, you can go further and bigger, So like I'm now these days asking when I'm making investment decisions in winter, I'm asking myself like, or actually I'm reminding myself, oh yeah, I'm building at least $100 million company over here, so I should invest accordingly rather than make small progress month over month and 24 months from now we're there with this thing. It's like let's just put more money now and get it done in a month. Mm-hmm. and then I can be more patient with the payback. It's like I don't need the ROI like right away.
Do you think that when you were starting out the agency and this SaaS business before Traindom, do you think you were in a different stage of Maslow's hierarchy, or you were playing a different game back then? Or
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was I actually had to worry about putting food on the table and paying the rent, immediate concerns, and also a lot of self-limiting thoughts and ideas. 10 years ago, I mean, I started blogging exactly 10 years ago, and I was still worried, like, English is not my first language. Like, can I even compete? And also, like, the ever old, what do I have to say that's like new and interesting? Because like it's been said already. Like, I mean, it's still true, but like then you think about it, like, hey, there's a kid in New York City right now that is like graduating and is ready to take over the world, and he's not afraid of, like, he's not self-limiting, and like this kind of like ideas are like empowering for me.
what do you think made you learn that, or like that level of self-confidence? How do you think that came to you?
Over time, I mean, success brings more success. Like you get encouraged by things going your way. Because after Traindom failed and we declared it done, I was a little, let's say, my confidence was hurt, like doubting my abilities. Because especially when you're like young and impressionable. I mean, I wasn't that young. I guess I was like 30. But still.
And what did you do before that?
I was a freelance one person marketing consultant guy. I did a lot of public training seminars on internet marketing in Estonia. I did quite a bit of affiliate marketing with like ClickBank stuff. I had multiple content sites that earned AdSense revenue back when that was a thing. I had this website called theonequestion.com, helping young people in their like dealing with quarter life crisis, like what should I do with my life, helping them figure it out, and I made like $3,000 a month sending affiliate offers to the email list and AdSense revenue.
And this is all before you moved to the States?
Yeah.
And
I was doing SEO and PPC for some clients and things like that.
For clients, did you work in-house at some point?
My last in-house job was like 2006. I worked for like a real estate advertising company, doing sales and marketing, like some limited SEO, mainly AdWords for the marketing side. Burned through a shit ton of budget without, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So learned a lot.
Did you always want to be an entrepreneur, like even before those gigs?
No, it was complete accident because like in 2007 I landed a job that was like a remote job, unheard of back then, and I was selling advertising to an internet television channel over Skype, and I could live anywhere, and so I moved to Panama, and then the company ran out of money, and then I had to somehow make it, and I found myself in Panama and couldn't find a job. And then I thought, what if I offered my skills to the local tourist companies and real estate companies who would want more foreign traffic, American traffic? So I started basically SEO services company in Panama, and landed clients very easily. And then it's like accidental entrepreneur.
So was that like step one of like building confidence and saying like, oh wait, I can make a living this way. I don't have to just like go get a job.
So it was like I applied for jobs, but it got rejected, and the reason was like, we need somebody like you, we need what you offer, but we don't have a full-time job to offer you. And after hearing that multiple times, like, oh, they need it, but not full-time. Well, and so the same people that I interviewed me for a job landed those as my contracting, basically consulting clients. And I did SEO for them for like $400 a month retainers. Yeah.
So where did you go from that point to CXL? Because you were a freelancer in terms of like conversion rate optimization. You were doing your coaching. How did you land on conversion rate optimization? You're definitely the big expert now, right? Like, when you think about CRO, you think about PEP. So like, how did you initially even get into that space at all?
it was basically Google research. So after my SaaS company failed 2011 and declared it done, I thought, okay, I'm gonna now build a blog and I'm gonna build myself an audience because my SaaS company died because I had no audience to sell to. So I'm gonna build an audience first. Okay, so I'm doing marketing, so I'll just start a marketing blog. But marketing blog space is very competitive, I thought, in 2011. I hadn't seen nothing yet.
Who was around at that point?
Oh, duct
Content
tape marketing,
Institute.
it's Seth Godin, and
I mean, they were big names.
and then basically I realized I need to niche down, and I started Googling various marketing niches, and basically checking how competitive each niche is. And so CRO that I had dabbled in, done as one of the many marketing things, I noticed that there are only a very few sites. There was, I think, Wider Funnel was around, and there was like Invesp and a couple of other site marketing experiments probably was around. Brian Eisenberg,
yeah.
And then I looked at their blog content, and it was it was weak. It was like this 400, 300 word generic, very vague articles. Like I could totally dominate this space, and so I went for it. So basically, it was only through that. It was kind of an accident. It could have been a PPC guy.
Why did you think you needed to build an audience? Did you have examples in your head? You mentioned Seth Godin. This was already a model that you kind of like knew worked. Like you needed influence, and you saw others doing that.
I think my big role model back then was a company called Mind Valley, which is now a big personal development company. They do like all kinds of courses and like apps on like mindfulness and meditation. But back then they were doing a lot of like digital marketing stuff. And also I guess my role models were also the info marketing people. Like the Ryan Dice and whoever were the gurus back then, because they had email lists. And I fully understood the power of email lists and the power that a guru status gives you. Like if you're Frank Kern, like people want to buy from you. Okay, now, of course, I feel very bad about those info marketing people. But back then they nailed already what now is. We're all building audiences, like the info marketing crowd, the scammers and snake oil people. They did it, 15 years before.
I still think you can learn so much from them. You don't have to like agree with what they're doing, but like I think their tactics, like if you look at what they're doing in terms of like you mentioned earlier, those voting rings.
Yeah.
They're doing that years ago, right? Like
Exactly.
they're all selling each other's products.
Exactly. And like things like how common is upselling? Like very underutilized tactic, right? And then you look at ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson, one of the
tripwires and all of those things.
Like if you sign up for ClickFunnels, before you can actually log into the software, you have to either accept or decline like 11 upsell offers. Do you want this, for $20 a month? Do you want this course? Do you want this coaching? Do you want this extra support? Do you want, it's crazy. It's ridiculously bad crazy, but it's obviously working because last I heard they were doing like 90 million ARR bootstrapped.
Damn.
I think he was on Nathan Latka's podcast, like disclosing some numbers. Like, dang.
I do wonder sometimes though what the numbers they disclose because they are selling a certain lifestyle too, right? It's aspirational. It's like look at my income report and then take my course on how to build income blogging.
Yeah,
right?
he used to do. Well, I mean, I don't know Russell personally.
Maybe not him personally, right? But that whole space when they like release their income, it's like there is some. The higher the number is, the more they can sell that lifestyle to the audience.
Yeah, I think when they were younger, they were all doing more of that. I think like our friend Ryan Dice was also like that guy, and now he's like legit. So, totally. Yeah, I don't remember why we were talking about this stuff.
Your early influence.
Early influence audience. So I think from there I knew that it's important. The email list building, because also I had a very successful blog in Estonia. Internetmarketing.ee, the site's still around, abandoned but around. So I built the biggest email list and the biggest blog about marketing in Estonia. And so I was filling big conference halls with people teaching, doing 2-day seminars and things like that. And I bought my very first house with cash in San Antonio in like 2008 from the money I made with the seminar. So I had done this before CXL in a just a big guy in a small pond. Yeah. So that was a model, and also like when I did the retro, like why I trained them failed. It was like I had nobody to sell to. I had nobody in my email list was like 100 people, and I had no money to buy the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh, wouldn't it be better if I just had an audience? And already back then, multiple people had built blogs and audiences, and then they were selling them, whatever, even affiliate offers.
Did you consider an audience as simply followers on an email list, or like what do you mean by kind of audience or following?
Back then, I was definitely 100% focused on email list, building an email list.
Mm-hmm.
Twitter, I even abandoned Twitter for a few years, like didn't take it seriously.
You never thought about SEO when you were starting CXL, the blog, or I guess like
it was in the back of my mind. I wanted to rank for stuff, for sure.
You're looking at all these other blogs. You're looking at Wider Funnel. You're looking at like marketing experiments.
Yeah,
you see the niche in terms of CRO. How do you build from there? Like, what's your first, second, third step?
First steps were like I wanted to make a splash, put myself on the table. So where is a community of these people that I could serve with interesting content that would share it? And so I chose Hacker News as the community I wanted to target. And so I studied what type of posts are doing really well on Hacker News. So kind of trying to re-engineer it, the idea of, and then I noticed that, well, of course, most of the content there is like developer heavy. So what non-developer content is doing great? And it was a lot of pop psychology and pricing. So the single founder nerds were into those topics. It's like, okay, great. And so the very first article I wrote was about pricing. So I read a pricing book, I Googled all the pricing research that had been done, compiled this article that really referenced all the pricing studies I could get my hands on. And boom, I did get number one on Hacker News. And then I wrote my next...
Did you try to game it, or did you just naturally get number one?
It was naturally.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Unheard of.
And then I wrote my second article, which was about like lesser known persuasion tactics. So not Cialdini stuff, but like more obscure research. And again, Hacker News number one.
Those are your first two posts?
First two posts, both were number one on Hacker News. And then Tim Ferriss tweeted the pricing article and sent me so much traffic that took the blog down. And Tim found it from Hacker News. And from Hacker News, it's also like if you get into I think even in the top 10, there are a lot of like this automated syndication accounts and posts that automatically start doing content syndication for you if you get certain amount of points or a certain rank there. And so I got a lot of backlinks also there, like massive traffic that didn't convert, but traffic. I mean, I captured emails. And then that was like, and then I guest posted heavily as well. And so my first year, I mean, was already very, very successful at blogging. And also my format that I chose for the blog post, long form, every claim backed up by a link to a study or a case study, an example, which nobody was doing back then. And articles were long and thorough. So my standard was that every article I write has to be the best article ever written about this topic.
Yeah, that was a notorious guideline that I still have stuck in my head. How did you choose that? Why did that become a thing?
Because when assessing my competitive strategy, I looked at, I saw that other CRO blogs just did poor, mediocre quality blog posts. So I decided that I'm going to compete on quality. So that was like I can do better than these guys. So competing in quality, and then I set myself a bar, just made up that it has to be the best in the world, in my opinion. And two, I saw these studies where pages that get the most social shares and backlinks are at least some 1,800 words. And so that was another guideline that every blog post had to be at least 1,800 words because it works better. And it did. It did work better. And still, when you look at such studies today, those things are still true. Like 300-word blog post, unless it's that code, and don't get shared.
Yeah, so there was a pragmatic, rational reason. For some reason, I can't picture you running a content farm even if it worked. There's got to be some purist in you, too, that actually has those high standards that you wouldn't want to publish, a bunch of Just drivel anyway. Or, I don't know. Maybe if that worked, it
Yeah,
could
well,
work.
I mean, I mean, we all want to do as little as possible to get success. It's called optimization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if it worked, if it was enough to produce mediocre content, but the world is not that way.
Right. And if you look at the long term, the long game, like those kind of high quality pieces, if you're operating on Google's kind of incentive model, like that's going to be the content that they want to deliver to people.
Exactly right. Plus, I was building an agency, and agencies are in the business of expertise, and so each content piece will reflect on you as like how good is your expertise. So if you want to become the go-to expert at,
so that's what I was kind of going for, right? Like if you could have published a bunch of 500-word articles, let's say they're not even good. Like let's say they're based on like shitty information.
Yeah.
Like even if it brought in traffic, like I don't know if that.
yeah, probably the
path.
business impact would have been like people would be like, meh.
It seems like a short-term play. It seems like you can get those traffic spikes, you can get vanity metrics.
Yeah.
Really, what's that worth if it's not like on the back end proving that your business is good?
Totally, because like for the first 4 or 5 years, we never once, even when we emailed the list, we didn't ask them for money.
Mm-hmm.
It was all like it was just about pure content and adding value, building up goodwill. Of course, on the website we had services and so on, and then in the beginning they were cheap, and then over time they got more and more expensive.
Mm-hmm. So I think something that's indicative of that value and like that constant quality is the fact that like as your domain rating grew, you could have just published a bunch of trash content and it could have ranked, but you never started doing that with CXL. You kept those high standards.
Kept those high standards, and then also when you realize that something is working, you want to do more of that.
Mm-hmm.
So first whatever number of years it was just me writing, and then we had Tommy Walker and you and Chanel, and everybody was basically given the guidelines that had worked for me, like this long, and then it usually took me this long to write, so you write this many articles per week, and etc.
Yeah. So how did you actually like translate those standards in your head to all of us? Because I feel like on one hand, we knew that we wanted to write the best post in the world, whatever that means. I don't know. It's kind of vague, and maybe that's the purpose, right? Because I also felt like we had a lot of autonomy, and like there was a certain ownership that I felt over my content, like my name. Like it felt like I was, I wanted to like prove that I was a good writer too.
Yeah.
So like there was some level of autonomy, and I felt a lot of control. But like every writer you've hired has kind of like they've measured up to that bar, right?
Totally.
So like how do you translate those standards that you've had in your head that you started the blog with to a variety of different writers with different backgrounds?
Totally. Well, I think if the guidelines are easy and clear, because it wasn't like here's like 99 things you need to remember. It's like 3: high quality, this long, this frequency. That's it.
And they were kind of qualitative too, right? Like in your head, what the best in the world means something different to everybody, but it still means like a North Star in that direction.
Yeah,
right?
and then the first editorial process, like there was a learning curve of like, because like I was adding comments in the Google Docs of like, like you're making a claim here. What is the source? Citation needed, and things like that. Like if you remember the first few articles you wrote, like
I remember very fondly the first article that I wrote. I think I had cited a couple Witch Test 1 studies, and I think you had a comment that said, "We do not cite Witch Test 1. We are fundamentally against their bullshit."
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
Quickly.
It's still one of my guidelines where I have a freelance writer or whatever, and then links to like to Neil Patel's or Quick Sprout. It's like no,
instant delete.
We do not link to those sources or quote Neil Patel.
So that's like a quality standard. That's not like a style guideline. I think a lot of these guidelines that editors put out, it's like, I don't know, we don't use the passive voice or stuff like that. And you didn't really care about that stuff.
No, yeah. Not really, yeah. Derek, who was my most recent content lead at CXL, Derek Gleason, so in his exit interview, he wrote that he developed this inner pep voice, reviewing his blog post, and he was like, he feels sorry for the future writers where he's the editor because he's bringing that voice with him.
I do the same thing now. I don't edit as much anymore. With the agency, I'll do a little bit. But we've gone through this. Allie had a difficult client. She had somebody who was very like, she had the pep voice, right? And I was like, trust me, it's not personal. Like, it's for the best. Like, this person has like the high standards in their head, and they're just using this kind of tonality because they want to get there.
Yeah.
Right. But I do look at content like that now, and if I do edit a piece, I'm like, all right, I gotta not be so blunt because maybe they're not used to this style.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, of course, you want to be soft on people, hard on the principle.
Soft on people, hard on the principle.
This is
How does that exhibit itself?
This is a classic negotiation book, Getting to Yes, the FBI negotiations book, which is a really great book to read. And so when you're negotiating your rent or salary increase, or it doesn't matter what, that's the fundamental principle. Because like, if you're hard on people, they get emotional and defensive, and you don't get anything. So you're always soft on people, but you're hard on the principle.
Yeah. How does that exhibit itself in terms of like a comment on like a draft or something? Like,
so they refer to, let's say, Neil Patel and the link to something he said. So instead of saying, "You stupid piece of shit, we do not like endorse this bullshittery," like.
like, oh my god.
Okay, so that's an extreme. I'm never abusive like this. Never have been. So that would be like the extreme example, or like you can see. Hard would be delete this bullshit. We will not have it.
Yeah.
And soft would be. I think that Neil Patel is not a trustworthy source because he has multiple times made erroneous remarks, and is just not a trustworthy source. So it's better not to include him in the pieces in this one or the future one. Something like this,
Yeah.
So you communicate diplomatic. You
Have you had to intentionally develop that diplomacy, that skill there?
I'm still bad at it.
Yeah. I think like when intentionality is there, when people know your intentions, it doesn't matter as much, right? Like when people know what you're striving for, what the mission is, you can use harsher language, and that's fine.
So it's exactly like. Another comment from Derek was that in the beginning it was hard to work with me because I can be very harsh and direct, but like especially being remote, because on Slack everything seems more harsh.
Yeah.
But like once you hang out with me and you see what I'm like in person, like it's I'm kicking the ball, not the player.
That's an interesting phrase. Yeah, it was like that. I think my first summer, because I had started and then you went to Estonia. So I was just working from Austin, so like it didn't translate as well. I don't remember. I actually enjoyed some of the straightforward feedback, but as soon as I like got to hang out with you more, I realized like where it was coming from, and I'm like, oh, he just wants good articles, right?
Yeah.
So I think that is something too. It's like
For
kind of
sure,
getting to know the person. The love behind the feedback, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, my bluntness and so on is definitely stuff that I actually gotta work on because it's been causing problems throughout my career.
Well, if I could give you some blunt feedback, I would say keep the principle, because in absence, like I would rather have slightly harsh feedback than absence of feedback whatsoever, because I think the fact that you are giving feedback and I think the fact that you are pushing it out there means you care enough about a good product, right? Like that says everything. Versus like somebody that just sits back and accepts mediocrity. I think that damages the person on the other side much more and much longer term than maybe the initial sting of your work not being up to the bar.
I think it's generally the life principle of, and this is also what like Jeff Bezos is saying, like the high expectations, so the having high standards. And I think a lot of people who have great potential have worked and delivered shitty, mediocre work for decades because nobody has asked them to be better. And in the end, like if you've done mediocre stuff for years, that becomes your norm and your internal standard. But if somebody from the get-go asks you to be better, like you never like, not that you're never enough, but like you can do better. You can be better. It's like, and you will become better through that. So I think like as a principle for all managers, it's like having high expectations and high standards for what you expect from people. People want to rise to the occasion. I recently finished this book by this CEO of Ritz-Carlton, the hotel chain. I love this like German accent and very direct, not like the American audiobooks where it's like half rant. It's like a very direct book about service quality, and how they train the mentality of how the hotel staff treats their people, and then like the mentality that we are here to deliver the best service in the world. And we are the ladies and gentlemen serving other ladies and gentlemen. And he has the stories of how like really people working for the hotel buy into that mission, and they feel important because they're like delivering luxury service. And there's all, you can read the book, but
well, that reminds me of this Airbnb Principle. They wanted to do an 11-star experience and imagine what that looks like. And it's super easy to imagine like a 1-star experience, right? It's horrific. Everything goes wrong. It sucks. You go complain about it. And then like what's a 5-star experience? It's shit, kind of mediocre. Maybe it's just like a basic ass apartment. It doesn't look like the pictures. When you go up to like an 8-star and it's like, oh, maybe somebody greets you at the door with like a fresh meal and a coffee or something.
Yeah.
And then like an 11-star is like, oh, it's right on the beach. There's not only a surfboard, but there's like paid for surfing lessons, and it's just like this elaborate,
Elon Musk is there
thing.
to take you to Mars, yeah.
Exactly, and I love that. Just as a thought exercise to like kind of like supersede your own standards, maybe.
And in content marketing, it's the same thing where everybody wants to do a great job. Like nobody's like, I just really want to like do like a mediocre job. Like who wants to do? Like I think everybody inherently wants to feel that they're doing a great job and they want to be part of a bigger mission. So if you set a high standard for the article as well, it's like everybody wins from that.
So there's a lot of mediocre content out there.
Yes.
Is that because like nobody's upholding those standards, or people are afraid to push back and give that feedback?
I mean, the people asking for those articles think that that's good enough, so that they don't know and they think it will do something. That's one. And back in the day, it used to do something. Like shitty content used to rank, so there's a lot of like just old content, like e-zine articles and those sites.
Yeah.
And I think it's also a budget issue where, I really need like 500 pieces of content, but I can only pay 200 per article, or things like that. So it's like you get what you pay for, because like good quality content is, as you know, it's expensive. Like mid-range content, I think, if I pay, let's say 1,500 word mid-range article, I can get let's say $400 to $600, maybe $700 there. And it's not a little amount of money. It's a pretty good amount of money. Like $500 is a good amount of money. But the article I get, and I did this recently for Winter's blog, I think I used like 4 different ones, paid them all between $400 and $600. And the articles are like, I never published them because I'm like,
it's a 7 out of 10. Not terrible.
Not great. I was like 6 or 7, but they were like, I can make these articles so much better if I just put in some hours here. So I've left them in my Google Docs. I'll get back. I'll get to it eventually. They're still there. I paid the money, and the articles are just gathering dust, waiting for my sudden time availability.
You need somebody that cares enough to like put their name on something that's amazing. Like I always felt like it may have been perfectionism. It may have been like just some social pressure. But everything I put out, I wanted it to reflect well on me. And I look back at the content that I wrote for CXL, and sometimes I'm like, how did I write that? That's actually this content's great.
Yeah,
from that feeling, once you get that, it's like you would feel
totally
not good writing something not good.
Absolutely. I was recently filming a A/B testing stats course, and so to be sure that I would be correct in my definitions for statistical power, I actually referred to your stats article that you wrote many years ago, for CXL. It's like, oh yeah, that's the correct definition.
Well, and I was upholding the standards of a one Matt Gershoff, right? So
we
all just don't want to disappoint the.
Exactly, you gotta be precise in the language. And Matt Gershoff's article is also like his article he wrote for CXL about p-values.
Yeah, p-values.
That's exactly. I've referred to that article so many times because it's like
they're like books in a library. You can just dust off and like kind of resource whenever you want.
Totally. It's like if you are expert at a subject, you can be eloquent about it and make it simple. If you don't understand something enough, you make it complicated. It's also like now I'm into messaging and positioning and these things. So like a guy that I admire is like Andy Raskin, and how simply he puts his
Mm.
ideas forth, because like it shows how deeply somebody's thinking about it. And then like if it's your average run of the mill positioning guy, it's like some generic, vague, jargony bullshit that like I'm a connoisseur in this area, but like I don't understand what the fuck they're talking about
Mm.
because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah, it's convoluted in their mind still, and they may need to do more writing, more thinking on it to get it to that level
Exactly
of
right.
clarity.
Exactly. So I think if you write 10 articles about the same topics, you get because you need to explain it better. Your understanding gets better of it. Like I do demos for winter every day. Some days I do like 6 demos a day. And now in the beginning it was like rough and it was all over the place, and I get it down. Just it's practice, and I'm able to articulate certain ideas much better in a much more concise way because I understand it better now.
Mm. So I feel like we're just walking through Frank Slootman's principles. We've done the speed, we've done the quality bar. I believe in the long-term value of high quality, and I think you do too.
Yes.
But I want to get to that point of like how you kind of develop that meter, that standard in your own head. And you mentioned a couple times exposure. So you mentioned the Jeff Bezos quote, right, around like seeing or having somebody that pushes you in that direction early on.
Yes.
You also mentioned in your own business life, like having kind of like experiences of people who have succeeded and seeing like, oh, they can do it too. So did you have somebody early on that kind of pushed you and like led you to have those high standards, or was that like something that you, I don't know, just naturally had?
I don't know if anybody distilled the idea of like high standards. That there's probably somewhere where it came from, but I'm not able to put my finger on what or where that was. There were some early influences of mentors and coaches that I had, but again, like they were talking about more like on tactical level stuff. So
Is this early on in like your entrepreneur career? You had
exactly.
mentors and coaches.
So like when I started training them, then my mentor was one of the founders of Rackspace, the hosting company. Totally. I lived in San Antonio, and then I've had there's this VC who, also now he's a CRO, R for revenue at a company, Paul Singh, X500 startups, etc. So he's been my coach.
Well, this is interesting then. So, like, I remember we went to a conference, Behave.
Yes.
And you mentioned, like, offhand, you're like, we got to start hanging out with people who are, like, doing cool shit. Because I remember there was just a bunch of interesting people there, and, like, it was just great conversations at the happy hour.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about, like, the 5 friends that you surround yourself with quote, right? The Jim thing. Yeah. And it sounds like you deliberately did that early on, too. You thought, like, all right, how can I attach myself to these mentors that are doing the things that I want to do? Has that always been a deliberate focus, is like getting kind of like your ecosystem filled with these kind of like inspirational figures?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why or how I gravitated towards that, like probably my experiences during student times or whatever, but like when I went to my very first CRO conference, it was Conversion Conference in San Francisco, I was a speaker, then I knew that I needed to know how all these other speakers run their businesses, because I was just getting started with my CRO agency. So I organized a speaker's dinner of my own. So basically I invited all the speakers, and whoever came, like maybe 8 people showed up, and I got to know them. And then there was an actual speaker's dinner, and I was just grilling everybody. So how much do you charge for this? How do you deliver this service? Oh, you don't do that at all? Wow. So it's just asking a lot of questions, of course, hanging out and seeing which people I gel with naturally. Because like some people, it's obvious that there's the natural chemistry is missing, and with some people it's just easy. Mm-hmm. And so, you make industry friends, and then if somebody is like, you talk to them, it's like, holy shit, they're way ahead of my game, like I need to hang out with this person more. So in CRO, it was Craig Sullivan that know. So this guy is like a walking textbook, and he's so generous with his knowledge. In fact, he'll talk you to death if you listen. So I learned a lot from Craig, and like it was formal mentorship, and then like paid coaching days, like we flew him into our office, multi-day workshops, also just hanging out with him, like at the events, and just really learned a lot. Yeah.
And you later built like almost like the a gigantic form of these CRO dinners in the form of like CXL Live and Elite Camp, and like
And
you just
exactly.
surrounded, you created the center of the universe as your business.
So totally,
As the place that everyone goes.
you wanna get to know ballers, and they don't invite you to their parties. You make a party and you invite the ballers. So how I pick speakers for events is like, who would I like to get to know better? Oh, this person. I'd love to get to know this person. I'll invite this person as a speaker. And then like, which friend have I not seen for a long time? Andre Morris. Let's invite him back. I haven't seen him for a while, and so on. So that's a lot, and like I've expanded my circle of friends a lot through hosting conferences, and pre-corona obviously 2 a year, like Elite Camp and CXL Live, times Elite Camp 10 years, and CXL Live we did I think 5 events, times 25 speakers per event.
That's funny. It's become like a social community of sorts too, because during the pandemic, in absence of events like that, not only CXL, but like there's Conversion Hotel and all these different events.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wouldn't call them loose. Maybe they're loose ties, right? Like in your network, you see them twice a year.
Yeah.
The people at conferences, it's kind of like a reunion every time you go back. Like
yes.
I kind of miss that during this time.
Definitely. There's some level of human connection that is, there's just, we've lost and we crave, and like Zoom is no replacement for it.
Mm-hmm. So how are you cultivating that now? Not only with the challenge of the pandemic, but the fact that you're in a different kind of like mission and role than you were in just like the CRO space. You've got winter, that's a totally different kind of thing. So how are you cultivating that ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, I have the Winter Games monthly virtual event that I'm now dabbling with, because it's CXL. People are, will you take CXL Live virtual? But I was always shitting on virtual events because like it's about relationships and hanging out. So I really couldn't walk back on my words there. I still believe like in-person networking at events is just irreplaceable.
Mm-hmm.
And on virtual events, it's just content. There's no relationship building happening. I mean, theoretically, they're building all these features, and like I've hung out at some events where there was some like round tables, but it feels weird.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Not the same. But like basically by inviting people and connecting with people in the space, I have made like new set of friends, like or industry acquaintances that we can, now the chat happens over Twitter DMs or things like that. So, but there's been much less happening during Corona times. I mean,
eventually they'll just translate, and then you'll invite them to the conferences once the world opens back up.
Exactly. Like you wanna, because like a good 2-hour conversation in person at an event, you can milk that for years. Like, or not milk, that sounds bad, but like ride on that power of that engagement.
Well, there's the social cohesion factor. There's nothing like in person. I totally agree with that. But there's also the fact that the guard is down. Like when you're at a happy hour at a conference, and like they're going to tell you things that they're not going to say on stage. They're not going to say in a blog post.
Exactly right. Yeah, and it absolutely results in business too, because like people hire people they like, whether it's for jobs or as contractors or like you do business deals, or if I need like an SEO tool. And I know the founder of one of them, and because all SaaS tools are the same, all email marketing tools are the same, all web hosts are the same, like there's very little actual differentiation. So of course you go with your friend or like the founder that you met one day and you like I hung out with the founder of Customer.io, which is the email platform we use at CXL, at an Unbounce conference. I mean, we didn't chat long, but it was enough that when we were evaluating tools and all things being equal, let's go with this guy, So, and also with the agency customers, like somebody I met at a conference has translated into business, 4 years later, like the serendipity or whatever you want to call it.
I mean, it's happening. I see it with the agency on a small scale. The one I'm running, it's like all of our clients essentially have come from my network. We get a couple inbound leads, not many. And they're usually less qualified, but it's mostly coming from like either a friend or a friend of a friend or some layer in that kind of circle. Same thing with the podcast, same thing with all the people that promote our content. It's like that ecosystem has been built through happy hours and coffee meetups and all of
and social media and building an audience is a big it's like a kind of like a replacement, because like a lot of people can have a relationship with you while you don't know they exist. So like I get signups for winter, and then I'm like, oh, this big company is signing up. Like I connect with them on LinkedIn. It's like, hey man, thanks. How'd you find out about it? Because we don't do a lot of marketing. It's like, oh, I've been following you for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, okay, cool.
It is a long game too.
Or I do winter demos, and the person I've never heard of is on my demo, and it's like, oh, I'm a big fan. It's like, like this, and they've had a relationship with me for years over Twitter or LinkedIn or all the mediums and newsletters. So they've seen my name a lot. So it's the same mental availability thing. So we're building a relationship even though we've never met, or maybe we had a conversation in passing at an event, or So that works also really great.
I think they call that a parasocial relationship on the extremes.
Parasocial?
I don't know if that's the case with you, but I know when like somebody admires like an actor or like somebody on Twitter or something like that from afar, and there's no like two-way conversation, it's like a parasocial relationship.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
So maybe you are hitting that B tier, A tier.
Yeah, I was at Noah Kagan's party a few years ago where he had Tim Ferriss at the party, and it was a little, fanboy moment of like, I had just read his 4-Hour Body, I think came out around that time, 2017, maybe 15. And I was like, oh, I gotta say something to him, like miss my chance, It felt weird. Like, I don't want to be the weirdo who's like the creep.
But I've read all your stuff.
Yeah,
you also don't want to like pretend that you haven't,
No, yeah, exactly. So it's like, how do you play it? And I was discussing with somebody else at that party, like should we go up? It's like, no, I don't want to be the weirdo man. I mean either, but like still. And so I thought about like what question to ask, and then we talked about kettlebell swings.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that is a good conversation. So I want to flip it here. You mentioned a long time ago when I was at CXL that you were switching in terms of like how you identify as like a CRO to a CEO or a business builder. Do you think about that right now? Like, how do you look at like what you do in the world?
Yeah, well, I'm definitely not a CRO guy. So whenever people on social media still call me that, just shows how long your reputation, follows you. I'm like, no, like you got it wrong. I'm not that guy.
Well, you stopped wearing the hat, and that should have signified that to everyone.
Yeah. And so there was a moment of a couple of years of like, who the fuck am I now? As well. I wasn't sure even what to talk about. But now I'm, my identity is like, I'm like a founder. I'm building a business, and I'm interested in all things business. I can talk, recruitment and hiring and employee management and operations, and like I'm interested in all these things, and then also like scaling businesses. I'm still gravitating towards marketing. I'm interested in marketing, and I've been really I'm just basically following my own interests. What is my natural nerdy curiosity? I'm following it. Like messaging, positioning, differentiation is like something I've just nerded out on in the last year. Not that I want to be people come to me now wanting to hire me as a differentiation consultant. But I'm like, and it's tempting. It's like, oh, you want to give me money? It's like nice to be in demand, And this is, but it's like, well, really got to say no, because get like bigger strategic goals here.
Yeah, narrow the scope. We've hit the third Frank Slootman pillar.
Yeah, and I mean, like Warren Buffett says, like it's. How many no's you say is what creates success.
That period between when you had a hard and defined identity as like a CRO expert, and now when you seem comfortable as like just a builder and like basically seeking your curiosity. Between that period, was that uncomfortable and awkward?
It was, because I wasn't I didn't know like I'm a big reader and learner. What book should I be reading? Like which skill am I developing? What skill is like business? It's not like a skill, right? I mean, you could make an argument that it is, but it's like it's all these subcategories, right? So there was confusion, and then I read books that just seemed interesting to me, and actually there was a lot of liberation. That because with CRO it was easy. It's like, oh, I'm like, this is what I'm getting better at. So I like go down the stats rabbit holes or whatever,
And there's a million rabbit holes in CRO, so
Millions.
there were a lot of berry bushes to pick from to keep you interested, at least for the time.
Exactly right. But I think being a consultant comes with an expiration date. I mean, some people can probably do it forever. I couldn't.
How did you know you needed to physically and metaphorically hang up the hat in the CRO space?
I like to ask myself two questions, like, am I growing and am I having fun? And the answer to both should be yes, always. And around 2016, the answer was no. Like my growth in CRO had plateaued, and there were more rabbit holes to go into. I could go into data science and go into, like AI and Python and more stats and pick whether I'm Bayesian or frequentist.
You didn't necessarily have the
But
interest.
I felt my curiosity had waned, kind of like I was like not jaded, but I was jaded from consulting because, like as I said, I can't explain the same shit for the millionth time. I got tired of that, and so I felt like I'm not having fun anymore, and my growth has plateaued, and so I needed a new challenge and new growth. And by changing my role, there was basically I needed to relearn the job. It was like a new set of unknowns and new growth, exciting again. And now I'm having so much fun.
How does that flag itself like on a daily basis? Do you just try to, like, you're doing the same tasks that you would be before, writing a blog post about CRO, doing a client work, and then you just have less motivation, or like?
Yeah, you're kind of maybe dreading, and like when it's Sunday night or Monday morning, you're like,
even if it's like easy tasks, you're like, I just don't want to do this.
I was like, another fucking client call. I got to present numbers, as opposed to, yes, I get to connect to a person and help them and show more insights. So like I felt my passion, like, and it was like I'm not feeling it. I think it's usually when people switch jobs. But if you're an entrepreneur, you can't really do that. I mean, you technically could, but but it's like you can reinvent what your job is within your company, or start another one. And for a while, I also thought I'm going to do what Andrew Wilkinson is doing. If you know who that is.
Yeah, you buy businesses, assign a CEO, and essentially have like a portfolio of companies.
Exactly right. But I thought, like, I'm going to be even cleverer. And I am going to, because I don't have the capital maybe that he has at his disposal, it's like, I'm going to be the founder for all of these companies, set up the teams, and then just build a portfolio of companies. But I'm starting them all because I'm a natural starter. I'm like, my personality is very well suited to be the
0 to 1 phase.
The 0 to 1, because I'm like gung-ho, I'm fast, I'm like, psh. But mind share of building multiple companies at once, it proved to be too much. Like Adept, which was like a new take on e-learning, I thought to roll out as a separate business. At first, I was really taking it on, and then I felt Adept, Winter, CXL. You cannot, and then the agency also, like, I cannot just think about it. It just doesn't fit in my mind, and I'm making very little progress. And then, so at first, I handed Adept over to my co-founder Viljo, and then realized also that it actually doesn't make sense to be launched as a separate company, because if you have to build a new domain, a new backlinks, a new content, a new all that stuff, whereas we can just do it inside CXL, it's just much easier. And so I realized the limitations, and now I appreciate Andrew Wilkinson's approach much better, where you go and instill a CEO who's full time. Of course, you need money for that. Andrew also pinged me and wanted to buy Winter from me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So what about the scale, like the 0 to 1 phase? It seems like you are rapid in your execution, you iterate quickly, and you just get motivated in terms of like what that rabbit hole is quickly. What makes you peter out in like or I don't know if you peter out in the later stages or get bored? What is it about like the after the building phase that like isn't as conducive to your goals?
I am not excited about like process optimization and documentation and operations management. And so as soon as your company is, I think, big enough to have middle management, and then you deal with personal problems and you solve conflicts, and there's a lot of management is very people heavy, and I am not a people's person really. So I'm not. I think I'm a good leader, but I'm not a great manager. And I'm also excited about other things. And so right now, also at CXL, I'm trying to structure that I am managing people-wise as few as possible. And there are better managers in place who manage people and processes, and they want to think about the nitty-gritty minutia. And also, like, I'm following what's interesting for me. Like, certain things I want to outsource right away. Like I used to be gung ho about, I'm wireframing and interaction design. I'm like, click here and then this happens and there's this copy is here, and like think about layouts, like what product managers do. I'm bored by that. Like, I don't want to do that. I should get somebody else to think about this. But I'm interested also about thinking about more strategic issues.
Like, is it hard for you to let go of the details, like the wireframing, even if it's boring?
No, not at all.
You can delegate quickly.
I'm a very good delegator now. In fact, also this year I read Who Not How, the book.
I just bought that on audiobook.
Opened up completely, changed my paradigm, and I'm an even better delegator. So now a lot of things that I would have tried to do either myself, now it's like a task is on my plate. I'm like, okay, who can do this for me? And I'm also in a position to throw money at people and like do this for me.
Was that a skill you had to learn?
Over time, yeah. I mean, also like starting even the blog, like the handover. But like now, actually, I want to know as little as possible about what they do every day.
I mean, it takes up so much mental bandwidth. You said starting another company did that, but like if you have your mind involved in every little matter, like how much room do you have for the strategic decision?
Exactly. Well, luckily, I mean, if you read the general theory, people like to be told, like you define the what, not the how. Like you figure it out. This is the goal. And so if that's, let's say, people who I manage love that style, it's a great fit. But if some people need more hand-holding and more direction and more emotional counseling, I'm a really terrible manager for those people.
I don't know if this is ironic or not, because I think I may fall in the same boat, but you're really good at building processes and systems, but it sounds like you don't like operating within them. Like, I know you used to build a lot of frameworks and processes for CRO. It seems like you just build and then step away and let other people kind of like operate within those.
I'm notoriously bad at like documenting shit in CRM and
Same here.
Like our whole company project management tool that everybody religiously has to use. I'm like, I don't log in there if I can avoid it.
I get yelled at all the time for the CRM, for the Notion. I'm just like doing things and I'm like, oh yeah, I'll update later begrudgingly. I don't know what it is. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It just feels like a wasted, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you reconcile those two things?
Well, I mean,
you just avoid it.
I mean, if you're the boss, nobody can make you.
Is that like a preventing? Is that like a barrier for any like?
I'm also trying to, whenever I'm deciding what do I work on, I'm prioritizing things. If somebody else is kind of do their job because they're waiting for something from me, I'll do that first. So I enable people to do what
Don't
they're
be
doing.
the bottleneck. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm a remover of obstacles, and ideally, I'm not even involved in the process. So I remove myself from the get-go. And as soon as sometimes I think like, oh yeah, like show me that for QA, or like figure this out, bring it to me for feedback. And then sometimes it sits like a week. People are waiting for like actually just do what you think is best, because like apparently I just cannot summon the time. Or it just also means that either I don't care that much, or I trust these people enough that they'll probably make a good call.
Well, it sounds like your energy and time is better spent elsewhere. Have you read this book? It's called Rocket Fuel. It's about founders. There's like kind of archetypes, right? Like there's the visionary and there's the integrator. And the stereotypical example would be like Steve Jobs, the visionary.
Yes,
right?
yes.
And the integrator is going to be much more kind of operationally excellent and like good at processes and good at systems.
It came with a personality test that I took.
Yeah. So you fall squarely in the visionary category.
I would think that today, for sure, maybe not 10 years ago, but I have evolved into that. So I am an idea machine. So also like while I sometimes feel like I'm not surrounded by enough creative people who generate ideas, it's also that well I got plenty of ideas of my own.
Mm-hmm.
And like back in the CRO days, I used to make fun of hippos. Oh, hippos! Like they think they have an opinion and stuff. Like we bring the data, we're the optimization guys. But now, I'm becoming more and more the hippo.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm a like experimentation person at heart still, and I operate based on data. But I see how valuable hippos are, and hippos have earned their place because
They push things forward.
how did they become a hippo? They earned it.
Mm-hmm.
They made all the mistakes. They had some successes. They've done a lot of stuff. They have a wealth of experience. Because you normally become a hippo when you're like old enough. Like you've seen shit, you've done stuff, and so you synthesize much faster, and you have a product vision. Because like if you have a vision for what doesn't exist, but we need to go build, like you're doing a category creation or innovation or a new product, there is no data that will tell you that how to do something. Like you cannot A/B test your way to a vision, and it takes I think strategy takes more conviction than answers. You have still a lot of questions and you have some data. You have directional data, like winter, came from my own problem and then I did some interviews to validate, but like so very qualitative, very small sample sizes, So I think, and now where we're taking CXL, the future, where winter are going, it's all think based on the synthesis of what I see and what I've experienced, what I've read, what I've heard. Obviously, I'm ready to change my mind if I have data saying that I'm wrong.
Mm-hmm. We haven't even talked about A/B testing, which is fine. The world.
Do you want to know what the p-value is?
Yeah. Let's talk about maybe Bayesian versus frequentist. No, I was saying this kind of dichotomy between data and vision. You can have both, right? You can have wacky ideas and then A/B test them. And like you don't just want to like maybe throw all of like every A/B test maybe shouldn't just be like spaghetti at the wall. But I always like to put like a little basket of like 5% or 10% of the A/B tests and just have them be fucking shower ideas, and then the rest of them can be done with conversion research.
Well, I mean, with A/B testing, I mean, you need to be already having massive traction to be able to test to have the volume.
Totally.
Like with CXL, I mean, like we're doing millions of dollars in revenue, but we cannot A/B test shit because we don't have enough traffic on particular URLs.
Mm-hmm.
Like mostly it's like subscription revenues. It's just recurring. Like money comes in without people visiting the website.
Mm-hmm.
So if we split testing sales pages for like new signups, we still don't get like 1,000 new signups a month.
Totally. So at a certain point, you have to just like take an idea and run with it.
So I mean, we always operate with limited data, fog of war. So experience matters a lot in these circumstances. Like also with winter, I think we're like getting to success much faster than like other stuff that I've done in the past because I've made all the mistakes. Well, not all. I'm still making plenty. I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, and thus I can now run faster.
Mm-hmm.
And also, of course, I've built up some reputation, and so, like my first 1,000 signups for winter were driven through my personal social media. Like it helps to just be consistent, put yourself consistently out there.
Mm-hmm. Where do your ideas come from?
Well, a bunch of it is just what I've done in the past. And when I like think about social media ideas, it's usually a synthesis of something that I see something, I read something, I listen to something. Like I'm still listening to a bunch of audiobooks every single day.
Mm-hmm.
No, like one a day while I'm driving, which is actually not very much. And then social media. So basically, I see something, I hear something, and that sparks something in me. And then I elaborate it. I add my own experience to what I've just read. And
this is true beyond social media too. So like you've got new ideas for winter, you've got new ideas for a new business venture. Like these all come from like your experiences.
Exactly. Like I'm having discussions with Sarah, my wife, at home, and about totally different things. And then it's like, oh my God, like, like I tie it to the business analytic. There's something clicks.
Do you have to go like run and write it down when you get those? Or what do you
Usually I do. I DM myself on Slack.
Yeah. Just store them all on Slack. So you've got like a mile long thread to yourself.
It's hard to find those sometimes. And then before falling asleep, it's like your mind is racing all these great ideas, and I was like, I'll write them down.
So you don't have a system. You don't do like Roam or Notion or anything crazy.
I've tried to get into those.
Same here.
But
I find people who are actually doing, this is going to be a mini rant, people who actually do things tend not to have time to build elaborate systems like that. It's like they usually have a notepad or like a Slack thread. Or I email myself.
It's like, be wary of the startup CEO that spends 9 hours a day on Clubhouse. Like, when are they fucking building anything?
Yeah, what are you doing with all that time? And the same thing, if you have to like set up a system and then transport everything every 3 months, and like, when do you actually do anything with those ideas?
Totally. I mean, I'm still, even though I'm getting like some success on social media, I feel like I'm still wasting quite a bit of time, and I could actually achieve my goals faster if I was just not on LinkedIn and Twitter. Mm-hmm. It's hard to know, and there's some FOMO happening, and there's like, what if I stop posting? And like, because like the brand thing is obviously helping my business, but it's also like it's taking time.
There's a serendipity factor too, in that you can't necessarily predict what's going to come from social media. And the same thing going to conferences, anything sort of like personal brand related. But it seems worth it, and it seems like you build up leverage.
Yeah, it seems like it's
not like a
working.
Direct response thing. Like you can't just like cut it and like see how much you're losing.
Exactly, and then also like with business success, it's like if you have a great week, it's not that the tactic you did last week, but it's probably because of what you did 4 years ago. Like it's just cumulatively adding up. I mean, yes, it could be the new tactic you try too, if it's like dramatic turnaround, but mostly what you do, what the success you're enjoying today is like what you did years ago.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask you a couple questions that David Khim, my co-founder, made sure to tell me to ask you, if that's cool.
Might be.
I think they're all good, fair questions, but we'll see. I kind of asked you this one, but why start new businesses now? Like, why do you keep kind of spinning off? Like, you kind of answered with like the portfolio concept.
Portfolio concept. Also, I really wanted to start a new SaaS company because like the time to value, like with agency, time to value for the client really takes months. E-learning, CXL, same thing. Like somebody has to go through a course, apply the knowledge, get the result. It takes months. With Winter, I mean, it's like you get value like that. I mean, some people might not be implementing the insights that they got from a test. I've heard that might happen.
I don't know who would possibly be in that category. Not us.
So we're all thinking about like offering also like managed services on top to help them with that part. But like basically, SaaS and the speed to value to the customer is exciting, and also the scale part.
Sounds like you're thinking about 11-star experiences.
Starting right now, aiming for 8, because like one step at a time.
Yeah, totally. So his next question was, what's the difference in building Winter versus CXL? And I think you kind of just answered that in terms of like time to value and
time to value.
Learn from a lot of mistakes and experience. And
yeah, and right now it's also like with these two companies, I'm like 50-50 CEO, hands-on and purely strategic. It's also like I get to use the both sides of my talents, let's say. That's kind of fun.
This is actually an interesting question. Who are you chasing? Who's that person a couple steps ahead of you that you're learning from, reviewing as a role model?
It's very unoriginal, but the person I follow a lot is Jason Lemkin. Like I think the whole internet, of course, follows him. Yeah, as a marketing thing, I guess also like I see what DG is doing, and Dave Gerhardt, and but with him, I think my personal sentiment is more like a peer level, like what's my buddy up to, whereas Jason Lemkin, I definitely feel is like, years ahead.
That's the voice in your head that's pushing you to that $100 million company.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, SaaS CEOs, I don't really have like one particular role model. So
he also, I think, jokingly asked, "What's your morning routine?" Which is an unoriginal question, but I want to know in the past when we would do those happy hours, what was your morning routine when you would get to the office at 8 a.m. after several beers? I don't know how you did it. What was that morning routine like?
Yeah, well, I don't remember. But like basically, I don't do anything. Get up and go to work, and it's my morning routine. So now these days, I get up 5:25 every morning,
Some Jocko Willing kind of stuff.
and I'm at the office by 6. Usually starting off with a couple of demos.
That's insane.
So I just get up, get dressed, brush my teeth, go up to the office, cup of coffee, off we go.
When do you go to sleep?
Like 9-ish.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah.
And then it's because of the Corona crisis. Like I don't do this voluntarily. Like now I'm used to it. My body's used to it. But I end my day at 2 p.m. I pack up my stuff. Normally Wednesday is an exception. But normally I end at 2 because school. I need to pick up my kids from school at 2.
Mm-hmm.
So and my kids go to school every alternate days. They're like Zoom school or in person. So if they're Zoom school, then my wife has been taking care of them and needs a break. So at 2 p.m. we switch. Like she goes to work, does her stuff, and I'm with the kids.
Yeah, so that's something that through working with you, I had always admired. You had huge goals and strived very hard towards them, and worked really hard and had the high standards, but always like set aside that time and like always picked up your kids at like 3:30 or 4 or whatever it was. Yeah. So did you? I mean, when you were starting like your businesses, did you deliberately kind of carve that out as something that you wanted to have as a life balance?
Exactly right. Like very aware of the different things that are important in your life. Like your relationships, your partner, your kids if you have them, and your health. You need to exercise. You need to manage all those things. So if you work more, you're stealing the time for something. Maybe from sleep, it's gonna haunt you. And if you steal from your relationship, like splitting up, never fun. Or your kids. Most of our life, we are adults. We are children only for a moment, fleeting moment in time, and would be really sad that if you spent that time at fucking work, right? And then like think back to your childhood, like hanging out with your parents, because at a certain age you gravitate more towards your peers and friends and less with parents. Like my kids are still very parent focused. They're like 7 and 10. So, yeah.
Love it. I have some fun questions if we have some time. For my backpack though.
Well, we can make some time.
All right, I'm gonna jump over, grab that little notepad. Just some one-offs. I don't have a good enough memory to memorize these. I don't know how Joe Rogan does 4-hour podcasts.
Who listens to 4-hour podcasts?
All right, so do you have any unusual hobbies? Stuff that I don't know about?
No.
You deadlift?
I used to, but then I have a slip disc now, so I'm banned from deadlift for life. I still squat and weightlifting I think is the only hobby I have left, because I really don't have time for anything else because children.
Did you box before?
I used to, but my shoulders gave up, yeah. So I've been 2 years out of kickboxing because my shoulders just hurt too bad.
So we need some stem cells, some steroids, some bionic limbs?
Probably, yes.
Do you consider yourself more of an artist or a scientist?
Scientist. I'm a creative guy when it comes to ideas. I have a lot. But when it comes to actual art, I'm pretty terrible. My wife is an artist, and so I also see what real artists look like and how they think, and I'm not it.
I always love just stepping back, realizing what you can't do, and admiring those who can. Painting has always been that for me, and any sort of visual design, even like product designers.
Yeah.
I don't know. You do your thing.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
Like I cannot. I'm one of those people that I cannot evaluate something until I see it. Whereas artists, they can imagine in the eye of their mind,
I mean, it sounds like you have some of that with the visionary kind of business stuff.
Yeah, but I think that's more abstract. It's like I'm a pretty concrete thinker. So like right now we're in the build phase in our life where we're like building a house or starting to. So it's like the house design and like what the rooms look like. I'm really bad at imagining it. Like I need to like draw it to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. Who do you admire professionally and why?
Well, I think like we covered the Jason Lemkin part of it. I'm very interested in business. So outside of business, I don't really I don't do much thinking outside of business really.
You have a dream dinner guest, one dead, one alive. Doesn't have to be related to business marketing. Totally can be. Who do you pick?
Dinner guests, yeah. Barack Obama
It's a good one.
and maybe Fidel Castro.
That's an interesting one.
So I was just thinking, like, what ideas would be fun to talk about, the three of us, while smoking cigars, obviously.
Obviously. When's the last time you changed your mind?
I've changed my mind about the importance of branding because I was always the performance marketing guy, and now measure everything is like attributable. Now I'm really believing in brand and long game, and also hippos. Like I used to think hippos. I used to make fun of hippos. Now I think hippos are good.
What do you think the most overrated virtue is?
Ooh. Overrated virtue. Wow. I guess it's hard to. How do we measure it? So as in business, I think how good you are with people is overrated. Like so many examples of how like Steve Jobs, like notoriously people, was not a good manager basically.
Would you say that would be like a niceness, politeness, friendliness kind of?
Yeah, like obviously I'm anti-abuse, but like you don't need to be like you can be direct and you don't need to kiss ass to get anywhere.
I totally agree with that one. Yeah. Which talent would you most like to have?
I would love to be a great singer.
Didn't you once sing in a band?
Yeah, but I'm a mediocre singer.
That's actually really interesting then, yeah. I would like to be a great singer as well.
Oh, nice.
What's a career choice that you seriously considered but didn't pursue?
Politics.
Really?
Yes.
When did you consider politics?
I was always into politics. I wanted to go study political science in the university, and then I also applied there. But then I thought, like, what if I study political science? Like, what job am I gonna get? Because it's not like I'm gonna get elected to the parliament at the age of 24. Like, what do I do until then? And so I was like, IT is more practical, and so I studied IT and then graduated. Oh, I better get a job as an IT guy, and so. But like, I really, considered it. I was really interested in politics and becoming a politician.
Life is long, and it seems like there's a lot of businessmen turned politicians.
That's right.
Obviously,
That's right. I might still become the president of Estonia.
So you could possibly do that, yes?
Yes.
Isn't Chamath, I believe he's thinking about running for governor of California, and this is happening all over. Achieve success in one big area, become famous.
Well,
leverage the influence.
Arnold did it, so...
Donald Trump.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of examples, actually. So never discount that dream.
Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Well, he never was elected to the office, but... he was a mayor. Yeah, he was a mayor, yeah.
Which blogs, podcasts, influencers are you currently kind of following?
I gave up on podcasts because I can't fucking take to the rambling. So I'm audiobooks only right now because an editor has reviewed the content. So I'm audiobooks. I rarely do podcasts these days.
What's a blow your mind audiobook that maybe people haven't heard about?
Stop listening to the customer and start hearing your brand. One of my best listens of the year, and controversial stuff. But I'm fully buying those ideas. So that was a good mind bender for sure. And blogs, I don't really read any particular blog. Mainly if LinkedIn or Twitter is surfacing piece of content, I read that. I guess Reforge is doing consistently good stuff.
All right, as we wrap up, is there anything else you want to say? Any links that you want people to head to?
Well, follow me on social media. I post stuff every day.
What's your handle?
At Peep Laja.
How do you spell that?
PEEPLAJA. I'm sure it's in your show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes, yes. Winter.io.
Winter.com now.
Winter.com.
Bought the .com.
CXL.com.
That's right.
All the good stuff. Thank you, Pep.
My pleasure.